This is News Guardian. News Guardian.
I love your show, man. It's great.
We just need to talk about it.
On WFJX, Fox Radio 910.
And we are back, and just fresh in from lurking about our building, Roanoke County Board of Supervisor Al Bedrosian.
But I have to say, props for Al, because I just checked my text messages, and I saw a text from Al when he was listening to us talk about the Chick-Fil-A thing briefly. He was like, bring it on! He was ready to go. So, I don't know, as foul a mood as Greg and I are in today, I was a little worried about you. Like, we were going to scare you off. But as always, you're courageous and ready to come.
Place that microphone a little further back and in between you so you all can lean in and both of you can talk. There we go. All right.
Well, first of all, you know, the two that voted with me were Butch Church and Jason Peters. Okay? So
that makes sense.
Well, not that voted with me, but voted for denying this. But, you know, to me, actually, quite frankly, it was a pretty simple decision. It's just following the rules and the law. Now, let me explain. I mean, here's the deal. That piece of property at Chick-Fil-A, or that Chick-Fil-A wanted, is zoned C1. Now, you know, you may agree or disagree with zoning. That's not really a zoning issue, Greg. So don't go there, because I've heard you on their zoning thing.
You should see the look on Greg's face when he said that, by the way. I just have to say, the bemused look on Greg's face was priceless. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay. So, but we have to put that aside for a moment, and that's, you know, to have this conversation. That piece of parcel of land is zoned C1, which is low intensity. Now, when you hear Chick-fil-A, does that sound like low intensity to you? No. Okay, so that's why right there on the other side of that property, it's kind of a big piece of property, is a dry cleaner. Low intensity. And usually they try to make it so that when you're getting close to homes, that you have some kind of a little bit of a buffer. You know, you don't want a Walmart, if it was big enough to be like right there with all that. So it's zone C1. Now, what they were asking for was a special use permit, meaning they wanted the county board to give them some leeway so they could go there. Now, the only way I think that that's fair, that, yeah, we'll change it for you, but then you've got to do some things. I mean, you've got to make it so that the reason it's zoned low intensity is because, you know, you have a small road with, and I'll get into some of the issues there, but with bad visibility and the turnoff of 460 coming onto that road, has like 3 cars can be in the right turn lane. There's just a lot of mess. So we express this to VDOT, to the owner of the piece of property, to Chick-fil-A, and to our own county board and county staff. Nothing was done about all the major issues. So the reality is that place with those issues not being resolved make it so, to me, very easy decision. No. Now, if you do those things and fix some of those things, the residents even were saying, yeah, that's open to us. So let's talk about a couple of issues. Big issues is that piece of property, if you were going to, let's say it was built, and you're going to come out of that property to go on to 460, or that you were turning into that property, there's something called a sight distance, and that's 390 feet, and that's a VDOT standard saying, hey, when you're kind of coming into a piece of property or going out and you look to your left before you make that turn, you've got to be able to see 390 feet. And the cars coming down towards you, they've got to be able to see you at a distance of about 390 feet. Well, this site only had a visibility of 270 feet. So basically,
let me make sure I understand there.
Yeah.
So if you were in the future parking lot of Chick-fil-A,
correct,
to pull out and take a right on the 460,
onto West Ruritan, which is again a small road, and then you would make a turn onto 460. So there is this intermittent road called West Ruritan, which is the issue.
So it's the 390 feet down West Ruritan?
Yeah, so if I look to my left before I make my right turn onto West Ruritan, which then would take me down to 460, and I look to my left, there's 390 feet that you've got to be able to see, okay? And the other issue is the cars coming down West Ruritan to 460, the 390 feet, they've got to see you. Because, you know, in bad conditions, whatever the thing is, there is this standard. Now, granted, VDOT gave them a waiver, okay, which everybody's kind of antennas went off in the neighborhoods. Like, whoa, why are we giving a waiver? What does this mean? Arby's 7 years ago tried to open there, and at that time there were no waivers granted. So now all of a sudden a waiver. So, be as it may, but that still was unsettling. What the recommendation was from some of the board members is do something with that road, because you really need to fix this road if you're going to start putting high intensity type businesses there. Somebody do something with that road, and you can actually lower the road, which is amazing.
So under those circumstances, the issue is it'd be okay for a couple cars an hour not to be able to see, but not 50 cars an hour.
No, and you know what, Greg? I don't know if you're saying that kind of funny, but it is true. If you have a couple cars coming out and having to deal with that issue versus a stream of cars coming out and then a stream of cars turning in, it does make the situation different. Because also you start getting a little bit of a backup on that road, which actually makes that whole visibility thing even worse. So, yeah, it does. And I grappled with that issue, too, is, wait a minute, another business could go there, dry cleaner, bank, or whatever. Yeah, they're going to have the same sight distance issue, but the conditions and the issues surrounding it are a whole lot different than high traffic. We're talking at Chick-Fil-A, like 150 cars in an hour coming in and out. I mean, it's almost like 250, 300 in and outs coming in. That's different.
For the most part, that's sensible. There's just one flaw.
Okay.
And that is that you're talking that number is designed for pulling onto a road where traffic is flowing down the road, okay? You're pulling out to a road where there's immediately a stop because there's an intersection right there. So how is it more dangerous for there to be one car sitting there or one car pulling out within the same area because you're having to stop for 460? Right. It's not like they're coming up over there going 45 miles an hour down a road that isn't about to come to an end.
Correct.
At that moment where we're talking about these cars, the road comes to an end. You're slowing to stop there anyway.
Yeah. Think about this, though, Greg. Okay, so this is the second part of that same issue is 460 coming like from the Blue Ridge area to downtown Roanoke. They would then make a right turn onto West Ruritan and then a quick left turn into Chick-Fil-A. That distance was also in a waiver because that as soon as you took the right turn on West Ruritan, the quickness that you had to make a left turn to go in the Chick-Fil-A thing was an issue, and they gave them a waiver on that too. But this would also cause that issue to be a little bit exaggerated, the whole sight distances. Now you've got all these cars coming off of 460 onto West Ruritan and now making left turns into the development, into the Chick-fil-A, and other cars making right turns out. A congestion starts to happen. And not to say that it can't be alleviated and that it can't be worked on, but no side was willing to do anything to alleviate that problem. And that becomes an issue. And that becomes, this is why it's not zoned for heavy traffic. I mean, there's a reason, and again, not going into zoning issues, but there's a reason why this is called a low-intensity area. The other thing, coming off of 460, if you're ever coming down 460 and you'd make a right turn onto West Ruritan, the right turn lane, there's enough room for 3 cars. Okay.
Right.
Now, let me tell you something. If Chick-fil-A opens there, they're smart enough to know that traffic coming into Roanoke in the morning is going to be making right turns to go into Chick-fil-A. Obviously, that's why they're in business. 3 cars is not enough. And we told VDOT, told the builder, everything, that right turn lane needs to be extended, maybe 7 to 10 cars long to get cars off of 460 onto the right turn lane. If you don't do that, they're going to start backing up and get into 460, and then you're going to have so much more congestion. To me, simple. Somebody do something. And it's not going to be the county. We're not spending money to do that. The builder, whatever. No one wanted to do that either. So those were a couple of the major issues, and they all knew about it, but they didn't do anything about it. So to me, I didn't. This decision is not about, everybody keeps talking about Chick-fil-A, and, it's that kind of a business, though. And Chick-fil-A, is about 3 times the intensity of any other fast food, which is due to their credit. I mean, they're just a great place to go, but they would get about 3 times the traffic of a Hardee's or a Burger King or, Wendy's or whatever. They would get about 3 times the traffic. The other issue is there are a couple different plots of land that are about a couple hundred yards from that site that they could build on, but I think this piece was cheaper because of some of the issues with this piece of property.
Well, not once you consider the cost of redesigning the intersection to deal with the safety issues you're talking about. It's probably going to make those other parcels more lucrative.
Well, you're right. Yeah. So that's right. So that's why they didn't want to do it. Now, if they had to do it, they probably wouldn't go to that piece. Or you're right. It may be about even to go to another place a little bit down the road on the same side. I understand they want the traffic coming into Roanoke in the morning, whatever.
They're smart.
So and I'm the issue here, and the only thing I really grappled with in the beginning was property rights. Chick-Fil-A wants to buy a piece of property and they want to build on it. Yeah, great, do it. But they are asking me as a board member to change something, to give them a special permit. And if I'm going to do that, then you've got to give something back to the neighborhood, to the area, because that's zoned not for you guys. And if you want it, then you're going to have to spend some money to make some changes that would, I think, make that area more suited. And nobody did.
Well, I have to say that in hammering all of this out, I have a much better understanding of the issue with it, and I think while I disagree with zoning at its base,
Al's got his hands up.
I know. Well, I have to admit that I think you did the very best we could ever hope for someone to do with a situation like that.
Well, it makes a lot more sense. And I have to say, the line of questioning is from my wife, because she was excited because the Chick-Fil-A would be convenient for her, and she ask Al about that Chick-Fil-A. So that was for my wife.
Yeah, and let me say also that everybody else that voted, Jason Peters and Butch Church, it's the exact same reasoning. It's, guys, it's not a big deal. Fix it. We love the business. We want it and all that. But the other thing that's kind of sad about this, I don't mean to get on your wife.
So does Charlotte just want people to die in car crashes there? What's that?
No. And I'm not going to go that route. I mean, Charlotte and Joe McNamara, they just look at it differently, which is fine. I mean, that's what government's all about. But going back to this issue, nobody cares about government at all until Chick-Fil-A. I mean, it's a little bit sad, and although maybe this is the thing that breaks it open, and people say, "Whoa, what's going on in government?" Because of Chick-fil-A, I'm going to start paying attention, maybe. Or maybe it's just like, you know what, if we're not talking about Chick-fil-A, I'm not really interested in government. I don't know.
Well, people are only interested in government when it starts to impact them, and the thought of getting that Chick-fil-A sandwich was exciting to my wife, so...
It's still possible. It's still possible.
All right, we'll be back on News Guardians with Supervisor Al Bedrosian when we return on Fox Radio 910.
News Guardians on Fox Radio 910.
Welcome back. We are the News Guardians, and as always, brought to you by Bent Mountain Bistro. Why? Because everything's better on the mountain. You know, last week, Ben got his hands on some grass-fed Hereford something or other. I don't know. He knows all these special terms for this amazing meat that he serves up there.
The ribeyes?
Oh, no, ribs.
Ribs?
Oh, these baby back ribs. And he didn't get a lot of them, but he got enough. And they rubbed them, and they smoked them. And then they finished them off delicately over a wood fire, and man...
This sounds like a Belle Biv DeVoe song.
Man.
You're making it sound really
kind
of dirty.
Yeah, we
anyway,
should move this show to the afternoon and then be served lunch. Don't we?
That's why you're a leader, Al. That kind of
forward thinking is just what we need here at News Guardians. So at any rate, it's just 15 minutes from 419. If you're going down Bramilton, take a drive up the mountain. Enjoy probably the best meal you will have had in a long time. And the vegetables are coming in at the Bent Mountain Bistro Farm. They now have many vegetables they can serve to you right out of their own garden. This is amazing. Everything's better on the mountain. Okay, and back to News Guardians.
So, Al, what's going on? What else is going on besides the Chick-Fil-A stuff? What else is going on in Roanoke County government stuff?
Oh, gosh. Well, I'll tell you, the last week we had a very interesting conversation. We've talked about this offline before, but this whole broadband authority, and they made a presentation to the Roanoke County Supervisors. It was, and for those of you that don't know, this whole thing about having access to the internet and I guess just the amount of uploads and downloads and just the power that you can have. I guess they say that Roanoke Valley, we're not being served well enough. So there's this group now that is looking to the 4 governments in our area to ante up $2 million apiece so that this authority can come through the Roanoke Valley and lay some big pipe down. I think they call it black something. I don't know. I'm just trying to envision all this. But so we had this guy come and give a presentation. And I'm very skeptical about all this stuff. I am extremely skeptical when not government, but a quasi group wants government to give them money so that they can set up an authority and compete with private business. And so I asked a lot of questions. And actually I've talked to Cox about this too, because they're the incumbent here, and the competition between them and all. But my thing is, are we not being served okay already? Because you could make this argument about having kind of quasi government take over everything. Obviously, I mean, isn't it easier to just, amass $50 million or $20 million or $30 million and then create a grocery store that maybe would keep prices lower than we get at Kroger? I mean, so that logic just seems, I don't know. I'm uncomfortable with it.
There's a new magic word in that exists in the world of getting business done, and it's called public-private partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And they're selling us on the idea of having, and this is I think what they've created here is a way to please people like us who don't think the government should be involved in things it shouldn't be involved in, but to please leftist socialists and liberals that think government should be involved in everything. So they've created this combo unit that's supposed to make all of us happy, where it's a private entity, but government is involved. But what you end up happening is a private entity that's getting rich off of government involvement, but then we all have to exist at the behest of government control over it. It's not going to end up pleasing anybody.
Correct, and then there's no accountability.
No.
I mean, think about the Water Authority in Roanoke. I always bring up the Water Authority example when they went to the Western Virginia Water Authority years ago. Prices have gone up. I mean, and they've given us a chart. The cost of providing water to Roanoke County citizens has gone up. To Roanoke citizens has gone up. I think Franklin County went down. But they were probably paying a huge amount of money, and so now with this Water Authority, they were able to bring their prices down. My thing is, whenever this happens, there's no way that an authority can come in and do something more economical, because if it could, why wouldn't the private sector have already figured that out? The private sector is way ahead of government when it comes to finding out efficiencies and doing things that actually make money, just like we're going to find in healthcare. The government came with this great thing, a government can do it for less. No. The bottom line, you're either going to find that we're going to get a lower service or a higher price, or most likely both.
Both.
Right. So government never does it better, and we should always fight against any even idea that the government, with all of its power and authority and the money and all that, and I just find that we're going into a dangerous area here. I think it seems to me that the Roanoke County area, the Roanoke area, is served well. Let the private sector find if there's areas that they can improve, they will do it. And in fact, Cox is already doing it, but I think they're doing it now because of the pressure that they maybe see this as inevitable anyway. I don't know. But that was an interesting topic of conversation, and an ability to kind of ask a lot of questions about why we're actually even wanting to do something like this, and why can't the private sector do it on its own.
Well, even the current setup there's a lot of government involvement in the whole internet.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's not as if it's a pure free market system that we're in now, and that's what when things talked about offline is, they're really choosing between this government control or that government control, and which government control works better versus a truly free market system.
Well, and that situation truly is a complicated one, because the pure libertarian in me can make sense of it and draw a line. But if you really start to look at some of the important issues that have led us to get where we are, I'm not saying we did the right thing. I'm just saying that there are some issues that have to be thought about. And this was shown to me actually by William Fralin when he was talking to us about, for example, what would you do with an airport? Like, if you were going to have a strictly free market airline system, would the airlines all buy their own property and build their own airports? And if you're strictly free market about it, then Roanoke would have 4 airports.
No, but that's not true, Greg. What would happen in that case is airlines would get together on their own. Because they would view, wait a minute, why are we all doing our own? Let us make our own relationships with each other. Forget the government. Get the government out. We'll make our own relationships and build an airport.
Well,
or,
you might be right.
What, I will build the airport, and I'll lease that part to you guys. So I think there's always a private sector.
But what if an airline said, you know what, I don't want to lease from you, I'm going to build one over here?
That's fine. What reality is you can get that kind of land.
Okay, and I'm with you.
It makes sense for them.
And I
economically,
don't disagree with you. I'm just trying to envision what if 8 airlines decided to do that in Roanoke? How would we deal with having 8 airports?
Right, but they wouldn't. And the reason they wouldn't is because they'd go out of business unless they were getting some government subsidy to keep them in business. But it would not make sense. The pressures of the marketplace and profit would force them to have to get together to lease space out to each other a share.
No, you're not wrong.
But the horse is on that issue. The horse is kind of out of the barn because now that you've built the whole system based on that, and now you have to cut the Gordian knot, so to speak, to get out of it.
Well, the system's done on the airport. The system's been set with respect to cable and internet. I mean, but it looks like we're going to revisit the cable internet issues. All right, we got 20 seconds.
Well, one last thing too, just to hold because global warming that always comes up. But just to let everybody know, that whole we cut the tie with
they know.
and
we had a party.
Clear, and you guys have talked about that.
Yeah.